How China Changed the World. China has a rich and fascinating history. From ancient times, Chinese engineers and inventors have made amazing inventions and discoveries. The ancient Chinese often invented or knew about things long before the rest of the world, but eventually their ideas reached other countries and changed the world. Many of the things that we use today originally came from ancient China. These are some of China's most important inventions. Paper. The Chinese invented paper in the 2nd century BC. That's over 2,000 years ago. 300 years later, in 105 AD, the Chinese invented a way to manufacture paper, so they could make lots of paper to write on. At this time, people in the rest of the world were writing on clay or animal skins. The Chinese used their paper to make paper money and playing cards. Printing. Hundreds of years before Gutenberg invented his printing press in Europe, the Chinese invented a printing press and printed newspapers and books. The first printed newspapers were sold in Beijing in 700 AD, and the first printed book with pictures was printed in China in 868 AD. In 1155 AD, the first printed map was produced in China. Thanks to these inventions, books changed the world by improving education and making information available to everyone. The compass. When the Chinese invented the compass between the 2nd century BC and the 1st century AD, they used it to choose the best places to build their homes. The ancient Chinese believed that their homes should face north, so they used the compass to find the correct direction. Later, the compass was used for traveling on land and sea. The compass made some of history's most famous journeys possible. Silk. The ancient Chinese were the first people to make silk. Silk thread is made by silkworms. The Chinese collected the thread and used it to make a soft, light material. Wealthy people in Europe wanted silk to make their clothes, so a lot of people bought silk from the Chinese. The route from Europe to China was called the Silk Road. For hundreds of years, the Chinese didn't tell anyone how to make silk. It was a wonderful secret. The kite. There are many stories about how the kite was invented. Some people believe that a Chinese farmer tied a string to his hat to stop it from blowing away, and his hat became the first kite. Other stories say that Chinese soldiers used kites to send messages to each other or to warn each other when danger was coming. The first written report of someone using a kite is from about 200 BC, when Chinese army leader Han Xin flew a kite over the wall around a city to measure how far his army needed to dig underground to make a tunnel into the city. One thing is certain, the kite gave inventors the idea for the plane, so it was a very important invention in the world's history. Fireworks. Fireworks may not seem like an invention that changed the world. However, the main ingredient in fireworks is gunpowder, and gunpowder certainly changed the world. The first fireworks were invented by the ancient Chinese. The invention might have been an accident, but firework displays soon became very popular. Until the 12th century, The Chinese only used gunpowder for entertainment. But in 1161, they used explosives to make weapons for the first time. Cannons and guns were also invented by the Chinese. At first, exploding weapons gave the Chinese a great power. They were able to protect themselves from their enemies. But people began to buy gunpowder and guns and take them back to Europe. Soon, everyone had these powerful weapons, and the world changed forever. Pasta. When we think of spaghetti, we think of Italy. But in fact, the Chinese invented pasta and made it into long, thin strips called noodles. The Chinese were eating pasta for 4,000 years before European explorers took the idea back to Europe. Ancient Chinese inventions are part of our everyday lives, whether we realize it or not. When you use an umbrella, you are using a Chinese invention. The Chinese made the first umbrellas to protect themselves from the sun and rain. When you use a match to light a fire, you are using another great idea from ancient China. The ancient Chinese invented wheelbarrows, bells, hot air balloons, forks, toothbrushes, football, dominoes, fishing reels, and restaurant menus. Can you imagine a world without any of these things? Treasure Island. My name is Jim Hawkins. When I was a boy, my father had a small hotel in England, near the sea. One day, an old sailor arrived at the hotel. He said his name was Billy Bones. He went to the beach every day, and he looked out at the sea. Billy had a wooden box in his room. Nobody knew what was inside it. After a few months, Billy Bones became very ill. When I visited Billy, he pointed at his wooden box. "There is treasure in that box," he said. "If you help me, I will share the treasure with you." But that night, Billy Bones died. I was very sad. I decided to open the wooden box. Inside, I found some papers wrapped in a cloth. I took the papers to Dr. Livesey's house. Dr. Livesey was having dinner with the squire. They unwrapped the papers and looked at them carefully. This is a list of treasure and a map," said the squire. "The treasure is on an island. We must get a ship and go to find it." So the squire found a ship. He also met a ship's cook called Long John Silver, who only had one leg. Long John Silver told me wonderful stories about the sea and about his adventures. I liked talking to him, but I didn't like his pet parrot. It was always shouting. Soon, we were ready to leave. I said goodbye to my parents, and we sailed away to look for treasure. One day, I was tired and hungry. I wanted to rest for a few minutes, but I soon fell asleep. When I woke up, I heard men talking. They didn't see me. One of the men was Long John Silver. "When we find the treasure and get it onto the ship, we'll steal the ship from Jim and his friends," he said. The other men agreed. "We'll leave Jim and his men on the island, and we'll all be rich," they said. Suddenly, there was a shout. We were near Treasure Island. I found Dr. Livesey and the squire and I told them about Long John Silver's terrible plan. When we arrived at Treasure Island, we all left the ship and went to explore the island. We found a wooden house, and we stayed there for the night. When I woke up the next morning, my friends were gone. I was very scared, but when the other men left the house, Long John Silver told me his new plan. "I'm not going to steal the ship or the treasure," he said. "I'm going to help you and your friends. But the other men think I am going to share the treasure with them. We mustn't tell them our secret." That afternoon, we went to look for the treasure. But when we found the right place, we saw a large hole in the ground. The treasure was gone. The men were very angry with Long John Silver. "You tricked us," they said. But then my friends jumped out from behind the trees. "The treasure is safe," said Dr. Livesey. "We found it last night. We're taking it back to England, and Long John Silver is going to come with us. The rest of you must stay here on Treasure Island." I was glad to sail away from Treasure Island. We stopped in South America, and Long John Silver ran away. He took some of the treasure with him, and we never saw him again. When we arrived home, we shared the treasure and lived happily. But sometimes, in my dreams, I still hear Long John Silver's parrot shouting. Based on a story by Robert Louis Stevenson.